All right, everybody, I'm Bobby Hayes, and if you're following along with this, we've gone over how a duck call works, how do we start using a duck call, what goes on inside of our mouth, our hands, how do we put air pressure in it, and you should be up to one single quack if you were on this third video. Like I said in the very first part of this, the fundamental part of a duck call is making air pressure. So before we move on to one quack or two quack or three quacks and so forth, we're gonna have a small video here on air pressure and what that does. So if you don't know how to get air pressure, go back to the first video. I got a bunch of stuff in there about how to feel air pressure and what air pressure does. But air pressure makes the call full. The amount of air coming out of your lungs and mouth make the volume of the call. And I'm going to demonstrate that here. So when I'm making air pressure and I call soft, that is just as much pressure as when I call loud. I'm just letting more air out of my lungs to call loudly. But like I said, I'm pushing on my diaphragm and I'm putting the same amount of air pressure in the call when I... So that's how a good caller can go from make those notes, because we're just letting more air out or restricting air. But the air pressure is the same. So if you're trying to feel air pressure, and I know if you're learning, you are trying to feel air pressure, go back to that first video. I'll give you some exercises for that. But what we really need to know how to do is to make tone. Like I said, you'll cut the note off, touched that in the last video, but right now, just good practice is making tone, and this is going to sound obnoxious. If you're doing this with somebody in the house, they're going to hate it. But, so what is good tone? Good tone's when the rasp vibrates, when the reed vibrates to its raspiest amount. So that is the top end of a duck call. That's what that is. So if we do a lot of air, but no air pressure, we're going to get a kazoo, and it may even be high tone. So if I just basically blow air with no pressure, that is no pressure, just air. So now when I start adding air pressure to that, that's the top end of this duck call. So good practice is to just put air pressure through the call, and we're not trying to make a duck sound. We're not trying to do anything but make the call sound full. So while you're learning, this is going to go up and down and waver and go high-toned and whatnot. So you're going to want to just make air pressure. If you're high-toning the crud out of the call, so in other words, if you're that means you're very constricted and you're blowing air and not putting pressure in it. So good practice is, like I said, just find the tone. I don't care if it wavers up and down. I'll try to do that. You're just trying to find that spot. And once you find the spot, you can get the feeling of being in that range, and then you can start to put your other fundamentals, such as the tongue position and cutting a note off, start making the ducks. So side note, this is the sound you're probably trying to make, but I'm going to do it two different ways so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is just a bunch of ducks run in sequence. So this is one long tone with cuts in it. So if I go, or I go, same exact thing. I found tone, and then on the second one, my tongue, like we talked about in the video before, it's hitting the roof of my mouth and coming down, hitting the roof of my mouth while I'm making tone. So that is, that's that sound. So when you can do that, that's when you can start to really run a call.